Hello, guys. Welcome to a new episode of the e-commerce lab by Ecomcy. My name is Vincenzo Toscano. I'm the CEO of Ecomcy, and today we're going to be discussing a topic that's been requested a lot, which is around how to calculate the cost around selling on Amazon on 2022. So I'm gonna be running today's episode around an Excel report around what are the initial costs and fees that you should be considering, and also some of the miscellaneous costs that most people miss, which are very important to understand the bottom line in terms of profitability and on the budget that you should be allocating towards your product launch. Okay, so we're gonna get started. With the report I prepared for you guys today. So in this report, basically, we're gonna be analyzing everything that has to do with your inventory costs, your PPC costs, and all the other costs that are involved in terms of launching your first product on Amazon. By the way, if you want this report, feel free to leave some comments below, and I'm gonna make sure somebody from my team reach out to you and provide you with this report. So yeah, this template basically here we're just assuming, of course, a retail price and also a cost of goods. This is just for a demonstration purposes, so this one is not on any specific product. I'm just here playing with the numbers in terms of what are usually the calculation you should be doing to understand your profits and all the expenses around launching the product on Amazon. So the first thing that we always want to understand, of course, is what are gonna be the cost of goods, right? And what are gonna be your FBA fees. So the FBA fees, usually you can calculate these by using the Amazon calculator. And also, if you have, for example, a tool such as Helium 10, they have a tool which is called the profitability calculator, and it's gonna allow you to understand what is the FBA fee for your specific product. Usually, the best thing to do in this scenario is to go to the same product that you want to be selling on Amazon, and once you do that, you see the FBA fee that is related to that product, and then you bring that into your calculation to reflect as close as possible the fee that you're going to be paying. Because of course, if you're going to be selling something similar to what is already one competitor selling on Amazon, most likely your FBA fee is going to be very similar. Again, this might vary because remember that the FBA fee is based on the dimensions of the packaging as a whole. So if your packaging for some reason is bigger or heavier, even if it is exactly the same product, your FBA might be slightly bigger. That's why it's also important to use the profitability calculator tool, for example, by Helium 10, which shows you the dimensions of that competitor, so you can use those dimensions when talking to the supplier and explaining what you want to achieve. So the first calculation is very simple. We are basically calculating what is going to be the landed cost. So as you can see here, the landed cost that we're calculating is basically the number of units. The sorry, yeah, that's correct. The total fixed cost, which is, I'm gonna be explaining these fees in more depth now, divided by the number of units you're gonna be ordering. So here your landed cost is $9.4. And once you calculate that, the first thing that you should jump into in terms of upfront costs are things such as, for example, samples, graphic design work, photography, GTIN costs, business expenses. So for example, samples is something that you must be always ordering from your suppliers. Here we put an average of 200 pounds. Again, this might vary depending on your supplier, because some supplier might require you to put a bigger deposit over samples. For example, some manufacturers, what they do is they put very expensive samples, like $100 or more per sample, just to make sure people is just not requesting samples without the intention to make business. It's like a filter tool. But also in some scenario is because if you are requesting some kind of customization or some specific requirement for you to analyze the sample for, it's going to require them to of course break a process that they're currently doing and jump into yours, which is of course is expensive for them in terms of manpower. So that's why it usually samples it can be expensive, but usually we allocate around 200 pounds. This assuming you're just working with one or two suppliers in terms of requesting samples, because if it's more than that number, usually sample cost might go much higher. Then you have graphic design work. Graphic design work is everything that has to do with the um, logos. If you need to do some editing with the images that you get provided by your manufacturers. This one may also vary depending on the level of service that you want to basically hire for this service, because of course if you hire somebody, let's say from Upwork, Fiverr, or platform where of course the cost is more accessible, it's going to be cheaper for you, and usually with between 100 and 200 pounds you should be able to cover those costs. But if you go directly to an agency or a graphic designer, this cost might also increase. The first part here is we are just putting sample average costs, but then of course this is going to change on a base by basis, right? Then you have photography. Photography, usually this is where we advise you to allocate the most budget towards, because you need to remember that Amazon is a place where people shop with the eyes. So if you're just planning to use the images from your basically manufacture without doing any editing, or just having some lifestyle images or things like that, most likely your conversions are going to be impacted significantly. So if you can hire a professional, a photographer that can get your product and then do a photography session, maybe with some models or some specific life scenarios, that usually is very beneficial for your product. So if you have the budget, which you must, because images is the top one priority, usually prioritize it on this expense first. Then you have GTIN codes. So for example, here in UK with 50 pounds, I think you are allocated 15 UPC codes. This cost is going to increase as you order more UPC codes, or if you want to own your own serial number. But with 50 pounds, you can buy your initial 10, 15 UPC codes. This, of course, is going to change on a country by country basis, because GTIN codes have a different pricing depending on which country you basically inform the website that your company is being registered. So have a look, but I don't think you should be spending more between 50 and 100 pounds in UPC codes based on the new pricing that the GTIN website is offering, which by the way is the only place where you should be buying the GTIN codes from, because other places you might have problems with Amazon if the GTIN code for some reason is not being recognized or things like that. Then you have business fees. So business fees is everything that has to do with registering, for example, your business company and things like that. So for example, here in UK is very cheap. I believe it's 19 pounds to register a limited company. You can do it yourself. You understand the basics around what is your business going to be around, and the category and things like that. But if you're not fully sure about this, what I would advise you to do is to instead hire somebody. And I think with around a fee of 100 to 100 pounds, you should find somebody that can do this for you in the UK at least. Then you have another division that we call fixed cost. So fixed cost is something that you're going to be paying each time you order the product from the manufacturer. In this case, it's going to be the cost of goods. So the cost of goods, of course, is going to be how much the product is cost to manufacture. In this case here, you are taking the cost, which is 550, which is the cost your manufacturer is giving you, and then we're multiplying that by the number of units you're ordering. Then you have things such as the shipping costs and also the shipping to Amazon warehouses. Here, I divided this just to make it more transparent in the different scenarios you might encounter, because most people, of course, nowadays order products with DDP format. So DDP format basically means that the actual manufacturer is paying for everything that has to do with duties and taxes, right? But some people prefer sometimes to just do shipping to a specific port, and then they handle all the paperwork and then shipping to Amazon. So that's why we allocated two sections. So let's say you're just paying to the manufacturer to ship to the port, and then from that port you handle the cost to Amazon warehouses. That's why we divide these two costs. These two costs also at the moment are arbitrary, because of course this is going to fluctuate a lot based on the current situation with the freight company. So depending on where you're shipping from and which country, this is going to significantly change. So the important thing for you to consider is that when it comes the time to understand the costs around your product, that you take in consideration the shipping fees to your country, then from that port or airport to Amazon, and also all the things that have to do with duties and taxes. Here we're considering that is DDP, but it's going to be a case by case, depending on which method you decide. Then you have inspections. Inspections we advise you to do every time you order from your manufacturer, because again, you can never be sure that the actual quality is always going to be constant. So if you're able to get this always done for each single order, we advise you to do, is usually between 100 to 100 pounds. This depends on the company that you choose, but we believe it's a step you shouldn't be missing, because it's something very delicate, and if something happens with your product, you might end up paying more to some things such as refunds, returning the units and things like that. So it's always a cost that if that you shouldn't be missing, to be honest. Okay, that's why we include it in here. Then here we have something that's called variable costs. So I'm going to explain where these costs are coming from. So we have advertising and promotions. So advertising, what we're doing basically here is that we are calculating the advertisement cost, estimating how much we should be allocating towards selling these 500 units. So what we're doing here is we're spending around $5,000 in inventory. Usually I advise you to then allocate around 30-40% of that towards PPC. That's where the 2,000 pounds are coming from. And then what we do is we divide that 2,000 by the 500 units. We're getting around 4 pounds, per unit. And that's we're then considering that on this calculation, which I'm gonna be walking through that soon. But the basics is that's where the 2,000 is coming from. Then you have promotion. Promotion is basically I know that of course lately with all the changes that Amazon has been doing, you cannot do any more things such as rebates, giveaways, incentivizing reviews and things like that. But still you can do promotions with influencer marketing, YouTube channels and things like that, in terms of giving the units to them or a specific affiliate link or something like that, a promotion, and then driving that traffic to Amazon, which is also considered part of a promotion strategy. So here, this 160, of course, is not taking consideration cost of paying to influencers or things like that, because again, it's very difficult to estimate that. It's gonna mainly be based on your niche, right? Because some niches, some influencers may charge more, also depending on their audience, their channel. So here the 160 pounds is just how much you need to put towards how much of the units, right, that are costing you're putting towards your promotion. So how do we calculate this 160? This 160 is basically coming from the cost of goods, the Amazon FBA fees, right? And then that's where the 1.6 pound total cost promotion is coming from, because we're assuming that we are just going to give 100 units away out of the 500 for the promotion. So if we take the 100 units and we multiply that by basically if we take the 500 units, right, and then we divide the 500 units by the cost of the promotion, that's how we get the 1.6. Basically what we're doing is we're taking the whole cost of promotion, right, and then we're dividing that by the 500 units. So you can see the calculation here. You have cost of goods, FBA fees, and then what we're doing is we're doing 100 giveaway units. So what we're doing in the multiplication is we are plussing the two costs, times 100 divided by 500, because of course we want to spread the cost around the 500 units, and that's how we get that we are basically on each single unit of those 500 units, around 1.6 pounds of that revenue that is coming from each single that is being sold is being allocated toward covering your promotion cost. Then you have your FBA fees. Again, I explained that we take that with the calculator, usually Amazon calculator or profitability calculator from 𝐬𝐻𝐸𝐿. And then we come down to what is going to be your profitability at each different stage, which I think a lot of people don't do this, is that you should be assessing what is going to be your profitability at different price points. So usually I advise you to go into your market, analyze what are the most common 2 to 3 price points, which you can easily find that with tools such as Helium 10. You go there, you see what is the average price of the market, what is the better competitor selling, what is the cheapest option, and then you find those 3 middle points. And then you calculate your profitability, because you want to understand how your profit margin is basically being impacted by that. So as you can see here, the way we calculate all that is taking the retail price, the FBA fees, right? And then once we have the FBA fees, we start deducting everything that has to do with cost of goods, shipping, promotion, PPC costs, FBA fees, and then we come down to the final conclusion of, out of the £29.99, which is going to be our cost, on our net profit is going to be around £9.39, which is around 30%, which on an ideal scenario for a product, that's a good profit margin. And then of course you compare that with different price points to understand where you can end up selling, because sometimes, let's say that your market average is £34.99, maybe you discover that you can enter the market with £29.99, which is £5 cheaper, but you're still making 30% profit, right? So this is good to understanding how you're going to penetrate a market that's very competitive with a cheaper options, because sometimes that's a good strategy if some of the people already have a lot of reviews, and you need a method to captivate some of that new traffic and convert it into sales. And basically, once you understand those fees, it's very important that then you calculate the final gross profit and expenses at each different level. So you can see at each different price points. Here we're calculating all the expenses. Some of them are fixed, some of them are gonna vary. Some, for example, one of the ones that changes is the FBA fees, because the FBA fees, one of the calculation that is considering the FBA fee is the 50% of the selling price. So of course, if the price goes up, the FBA fees are gonna go up. So basically, you can see here that if you're selling, let's say, for example, $29.99, you're almost gonna be making around 15K in revenue, and the bottom line profit is gonna be around 4,000, which is also around 26%, which is great on an ideal scenario. But I think what most people is missing on doing this calculation is including these miscellaneous costs like sample, graphic design, photography, things like that. And I think once you understand this in depth, you are really gonna have a deeper understanding of what's really your bigger margin that you need in terms of allocating towards the whole business launch. For example, if you decide to sell at this price point, and you want to sell, let's say, this product, just in cost, as we can see here, you're gonna have around 4,700 fixed costs just in inventory and shipping, and then you're gonna have another 900 just when you're setting up everything in terms of the legal fees, photography, which is a one-time fee, but still you need to consider that. So when you add all that up, basically you're gonna end up with around so if you put the 4,700 and you put the 900, you have around $5,500 just on your initial launch of your initial 500 units. That's why I always mention that you should be allocating at least $10,000 towards launching your business in Amazon, because if your initial run is gonna take you 5,000-6,000, you should at least have another 4,000 as a safety net, because if things start selling very fast, you need to have cash in hand to start allocating towards your second inventory, right? Like the 30% deposit with your supplier. And not just that, you also need to consider that other things may vary. For example, your PPC cost might increase. You might need to do more promotions. And then if you need to do more promotion, basically that means you need to allocate more toward giveaways and things like that. So these variable costs, that's why we call it variable cost, is gonna be dependent strictly on how the market dynamically changes, which is gonna happen. That's why having some extra cash on the side is good for this scenario. Overall, I think as a conclusion for today's episode is that whenever you are doing the calculation about deciding if you're going to launch a product on Amazon or not, make sure you understand all the fees in depth and use some kind of report like this to go in understand every single metric in terms of expenses. Again, here there are other expenses we are not including. This can get even more complex, like for example if you start adding things such as trademarks, that usually is gonna land between the $800 $1,000, another $1,000 as an initial expense. Then there are other expenses such as, for example, setting up your bank account or business entity in some countries might be more expensive, legal paperwork, things like that. Sometimes it can make the process also much more expensive. So make sure also that when you decide to sell on Amazon, whichever is the marketplace, you also understand the laws and all the documentation you may require, because that can also boost the expenses a lot depending on your circumstances. Okay, so yes, I think that covers everything for today's episode. Thank you once again for showing. Um, Basically, if you have any questions, once again, feel free to drop your questions in the comments below. I always make sure to check that personally, and I also have somebody from my team checking the comments to make sure we get back to you as soon as possible. Um, Also remember that if you reach out to us to our website, we have basically your first consultation for free. So if you have any questions, if you're not sure about getting started with Amazon, or if you actually already have a brand and you're struggling, reach out to us. Somebody from my team or even myself is going to make sure we get that first consultation around your business, understand where you are right now, and if we actually can add value, right? Because that's what really matters at the end of the day. And that's it, guys. So remember to like and subscribe. Thank you once more for joining, and see you on the next one. Okay, take care. Bye bye.